Hey, this is Bree with Cosmic Siren. Welcome to the Siren Pod, a safe space for those that have felt different and out of place, wanting to find a community of people who are open, curious, who are looking to connect more deeply, and who believe in magic. I know everyone is unique and has their own special path. At the core of it all, my goal is to support you in trusting your inner voice and living life to the tune of your soul. This is episode 2, Your Voice Matters. Do you feel unheard in your relationships? I wanted to explore this question more. Feeling unheard in relationships, not feeling like your voice is getting across. It could be a common theme among all your relationships, whether romantic, platonic, familial, other dynamics. It could just feel like no matter what you say, it doesn't get through to the other person. Maybe what you say is met with resistance, or when you express your thoughts or feelings, it's misunderstood. Or maybe you feel like it's turned against you somehow. It just feels like your voice, your truth, is not genuinely being heard. I wanted to share with you an experience that really hurt and affected me for a while. This feeling of being unheard. So I want to take you back to 2016. So after nursing school, you take the NCLEX, which is a national exam you have to pass to get your nursing license. So when studying for the test, they let us know it was a computer adaptive test that learns as we answer each question. It makes it so that every question we answer, we have about a 50% chance of getting it right. So it adjusts the difficulty for each person each time. Everyone warned us we're going to feel like we literally failed and it will be emotionally distressing. It was about an 80% pass the first time, but you can retake it. But they let us know that even though we'd feel like we fail, it's usually fine, but it's just not going to feel the best. So when I scheduled my test, I let my partner know at the time when the test date was. This was a month or so in advance. I let them know all about the test and what to expect, and where my head was at, how I was feeling, and if we could spend the day together and, have him be there as an emotional support. And of course, he said yes, and that would be fine. And so test day comes, I take the test. Even though they told us we would feel that way, I was not prepared. Like I literally during the test, I was not confident. It was the worst test I've ever taken. And afterward, I truly believed I failed. It was so bad. So I was driving home and I was stuck in stop-go traffic going like 2 miles an hour. And I was just sitting there contemplating my life, wondering how I got to this point, wondering if nursing was still for me. I called him a few times. He didn't pick up. He wasn't available. I talked to a friend, which was helpful. I talked to my mom. She said she'd pray for me. But it was just a wreck. Looking back, that was a very dramatic moment for me. But when I got home, and found him there, he was just casually doing his thing, existing, living. But it was just like he wasn't present, like he was in his own world, didn't even ask me how my test was. He seemed like he was actually in like a hurry. So I asked him if he was leaving or going somewhere. I let him know how the test went, how I was feeling. I told him I called him a few times. What was he up to? And it didn't seem like he really felt bad. He was just like, oh, I was talking to a friend on the phone. And that sucked hearing that, like, it's not like he needs to be available for me at all times. That's not like how I work in relationships, but like that specific day, that time, he knew when I went to my test, he knew when I would be back. The test is about like a couple hours long. So it just felt like, he wasn't there for me, but, I had my other support. And so while we were talking and he was shuffling around, he said that his friend was available to hang out and wanted to hang out and that he wanted to go and see him because this was a rare chance. His friend usually wasn't available a lot. So usually when his friend's free, he would, pick up and leave. And so in that moment when he told me he wanted to go hang out with his friend, I was kind of shocked, I paused and I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, is this a joke? Like, are you being serious? And it was hard, right? Because I felt for him. Like, I know this friendship is so important to him and I wanted him to spend time with his friend. His friend lives nearby, like within 30 minutes. So it's not like he's far away out of the country, out of state. But I understood, like, oh, this is an opportunity for him to hang out, it's and in my head, I'm like, well, but we had this planned, right? Like, I had this day planned, like any other day, like any other time, but I planned this with you. Like, this test meant so much to me, and his support meant so much to me. And so, in this moment, when he was telling me, like, as if he already decided he was going to do it, like, it hurt, it hurt a lot. I was thinking, do my feelings not matter? Like, here I am, like, hurting so much and distraught, and you just want to go hang out with your friend. Like, I didn't spring this on you. Like, we knew, like, what this day was, what this time was. And I was just shocked, I felt really unloved in that moment. I felt like he didn't care that I was hurting. He didn't care to support me. And to be honest, I'm not even sure what happened. It was a little of a blur after that. He ended up going to go hang out with his friend. And it's not like I'm going to tell someone not to do something. I'm not going to say, no, you're not allowed. You can't hang out. But I don't even know. It's not like he was asking me. It was more like he was telling me what he wanted to do, right? I want to go hang out with my friend. I told him in that moment, like, hey, we had these plans. I thought we were going to spend the day together. And, you know, he was just like, oh, I'll be back later. And so, he left. He did what he wanted. And I think in that moment, I silenced my voice. Like, I dismissed my own feelings. Like, I felt so unheard in that moment. But when I reflect back now, when I think about it, I don't think I expressed how much I was hurting or in pain in that moment. Like, this isn't to blame me, right? Like, it's important to be sensitive to your partner's feelings and situations. And yes, we had this planned already. He knew. But to ignore all that, like, I felt so unheard, yet I wasn't vulnerable and open enough to tell him, like, hey, I hear that you want to hang out with your friend. Like, I know that your friendship means so much to you. I'm also hurting right now, and I'm stressed and I'm sad, and the test really took everything out of me. And we had this plan, and I could really use your support right now. I'm not going to ask you to stay, but I want you to stay. Like, I want to feel supported. I wonder if I had said it like that, if he would have stayed. There's no guarantee. He could have still decided to go, but at least if I was more open and honest with the hurt and the pain rather than focusing on, hey, we already had plans, things may have turned out differently. It could have not. But at least then it would have given him the opportunity to pause and think about what I'm saying. And if he still decided to leave, then, that's up to him. And then maybe that would have gave me pause to really think about how I felt I was being treated in the relationship. I mean, I already paused at that moment when he left, but, if I had told him very clearly how much I was hurting and he still left without it being vague on my end, that would give me time to think and reflect and say, hey, even when I'm voicing my concerns, even when I'm being very clear and open, this person still doesn't choose me. What does that mean? I think it's important to focus on sharing how we are feeling in the moment, expressing our voice. I think we can condition to downplay how much pain we're in and not express when we need support and when we're hurting. And sometimes things don't have to be said, like in that moment, like for me, if I had plans with a partner and I knew what this test meant to them and I was their emotional support for me, I would stick to my plans and I wouldn't change that, right? But I understand we're not all the same, and I could have been more clear with how I was feeling. But maybe I was a little afraid. If I had told this person how much I was hurting, how much I wanted their support, and they still didn't choose me and they still left, that'd probably be very hurtful, If my feelings were still dismissed by them, it'd feel a lot more painful. So I wonder if maybe I just felt defeated and just decided, like, well, go ahead, He's going to leave and do what he wants anyway, so there's no point in me sharing my feelings. And I think that's what's important is I had that limiting belief. There's no point in me sharing my feelings because the situation won't turn out differently. And it's important we look at that. Where does that come from? That belief. Yes, we may have had experiences in the past that shape this belief, but it goes further, right? If we trace it back further of why am I not sharing my feelings? Why do I feel like when I share my perspective or thoughts, it makes the situation worse? Where does that come from? It goes back to childhood. This all clicked for me during 2020. 2020 was a huge year for a lot of people. For me, it was very transformative. But if this feeling of feeling unheard is a pattern for you, I think it would be important to look at all your relationships, your friends, your family, your romantic partners, and see if you feel unheard in all of them or a majority of them. During 2020, it was just a usual day for me. I was upstairs in our bedroom and I was reflecting about my relationships in general. I felt so unheard in my marriage. I also felt so unheard in my friendships. And during this time, I felt like something was pushing me to reflect and think about everything. It came to a point in my life where I was just so unhappy in my relationships. And I was thinking, why do I feel this way in all my relationships? What is happening? What am I doing wrong? Is this how I'm supposed to feel? And as I was just thinking about this, something just clicked, like a message came through. This is exactly how I felt growing up. And that's when everything shifted for me. The realization that the feeling I feel in my romantic partnership mirrored how I felt in my platonic relationships. It all stemmed from childhood. And that's when I started thinking, why did I feel this way? Why do I feel so unheard? And this is where childhood wounds come from. I have a pattern of attracting people around me that dismiss my feelings or where I feel unheard, that it's better to hide my voice, that expressing my truth and my feelings made the people around me unhappy. And when you think about it, for people that have this pattern, maybe as a child, when you expressed your feelings or were trying to be vulnerable with your emotions, you were met with guardians who told you to be quiet or not to cry, who didn't have time to listen to you, who told you to suck it up. And as a child, that you just normalize that. You normalize pushing down your feelings. You normalize not expressing when you're hurting or in pain because you truly believe that it won't make anyone happy, that it's better to hide your voice, to hide your truth. If that resonates with you at all, I did write a blog post that goes more in depth about how withholding your emotions affects your relationships, and it talks about what that looks like in childhood, and you can check it out on my website. But if you are hiding your voice and your feelings, for me, when I started re-examining myself, I was thinking about what energy I was allowing in my life and what I was doing personally to accept that type of energy. It's important to think about what ways do you hide your truth? What ways do you hide how you're feeling? You could suffer in silence and not let others know when you're hurting, like me. Maybe you don't share your perspective because you think it will make the situation worse. Maybe you agree with everything just to keep the peace. You ignore conflicts, that phrase, sweeping it under the rug. If this is the type of energy you're bringing into relationships, you're going to be met with the same type of energy in your partnerships. You've learned to dismiss your own feelings, and so you're going to attract partners who aren't emotionally available. You might be met with a lot of dismissive statements when you try to express yourself, like you're overthinking it, you're just sensitive, get over it already, I don't want to talk about it. I think it's just in your head. Those things really hurt you in trusting your intuition, your inner voice. You question yourself and you think, oh, maybe these feelings are wrong. Maybe it's not right for me to feel this way. It's not important. And then it just creates this vicious loop of you continuously feeling unheard because everyone around you has dismissed your feelings. And so you yourself have learned to dismiss your feelings. And this feeling of being unheard, the pain and suffering, it has such a large impact because we're reliving childhood pain. When it happens as we are now, our body remembers from when we were a child. It's important we talk to, love, and nourish that part of ourselves that is hurting, our childhood self. There are practices in the present moment to help soothe anxiety, but the hurt and the pain will keep repeating until we've healed the source. I do encourage you to look at inner child meditations. I have a free one that would be perfect for you to do. You can look on YouTube, but it'll help you connect with your heart space, talk to your inner child, and give yourself the love you deserve. We have to first take time and space to connect with ourselves and feel heard from within. If we don't intentionally give ourselves that type of energy, how will we expect others to do the same? Once we connect with ourselves consistently and build trust and safety within ourselves, we'll be able to know and understand what it is we need in the moment and then express it to others. And there are ways to shift this energy of hiding our truth. I want to invite you to try something. This does require you to make time for yourself, but you deserve this. You deserve to feel loved and heard from within. If you're thinking, I don't have time, I get it. Work, chores, people that rely on you. I'll say it again. You deserve to feel loved from within, from yourself. You deserve to make yourself a priority. And, when I started doing this type of healing work, it was hard for me to do it consistently at first. So I found ways. I did it while I brushed my teeth. So there's really no excuse. You can start there. We can get so busy during the day and forget to check in with ourselves and speak to ourselves with compassion. And we give all of our energy and love to everyone around us except for ourselves. I want you to intentionally program a new belief for yourself. And it combines 2 steps, an affirmation and then an aligned action. The name of the episode, Your Voice Matters, is the affirmation for feeling unheard. You can say, my voice matters, or any variation. I speak my truth. I honor my voice. Whatever words or phrase you feel called to say. And just start small. Start with something that you believe you can do. Say it once in the morning and once at night. And you can build it up from there. If you have to, you can start by saying it in your head. If you can say it out loud so you can hear your own voice tell you these words, that would be great. And if you can stare in the mirror and do some mirror work while telling yourself, I highly recommend it. Just getting comfortable seeing yourself say these words and then receiving these from your voice, it deepens the healing experience. It helps you connect with yourself in another way. And it's okay if you don't believe it at first. There are so many thoughts that we have every day, a lot of it repetitive. It can be negative, stuck in a loop. Just taking a few intentional seconds each morning and night to empower yourself with these words can have the biggest impact on your mental and emotional health. So for me, I started with brushing my teeth. I repeated it in my head while staring at the mirror for the full 2 minutes, morning and night. And I wrote and colored the affirmation on a piece of paper. I stuck it by my bed on the wall, and I just gave myself a rule. I told myself, every time you see this, like that you happen to glance at it, I want you to say this out loud. And that was just a rule for myself, just to get into the routine. And I was living with a different partner at the time. And I told him what I was doing. It felt funny or silly at first, but he'd smile every time I did it. It felt good for myself. And then I encouraged him to say it too. But after a while, I would occasionally hear the statement in my head just throughout the day. And if I hesitated expressing my feelings or explaining my perspective, the statement would start echoing in the back of my mind. And it would empower me to shift something and do something different and actually be open and vulnerable with how I'm feeling. And this takes time. It took a while of me intentionally doing daily affirmations in my morning routine to feel a difference. And it's going to feel strange at first. I felt, am I really doing anything? Is this working? But I started to shift those thoughts, and I want to help you do that too. Instead of thinking, is this really working? Am I doing anything? You can just think, I want to empower myself each morning. I deserve to speak positively toward myself. I'm open to receiving love. We can simply just say, I'm doing this because I want to feel good. And it really is that simple. The taking action part with the belief is really important here. We're living in integrity. Our actions match our words. It will get easier with time, but you won't get comfortable if you don't start. The next time you fall into silencing your voice or hiding your thoughts, dismissing your perspective, repeating your affirmation will be so important in pivoting your action. Pushing through that fear, it's going to feel uncomfortable. But if you just remember the affirmation and push through and share anyway, it'll get easier, and you'll empower yourself. You'll respect yourself more and love yourself more because your voice matters, your feelings matter. I invite you to try it out, build the habit until it feels natural and comfortable. See how it goes for the next month or 30 days and check in with yourself and see if you've noticed any changes. And seriously, let me know. Send me an email, a comment. I want to know how things went, what worked for you, what didn't, what barriers you had. I want to hear your wins. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me. Let me know what resonated for you or if there are any topics you'd like me to talk about. I always appreciate your feedback. If you want to continue connecting with me, I invite you to subscribe and get notified when I release a new episode. And you can also join my Siren Pod weekly newsletter where I share weekly doses of magic and tips. In the next episode, I'll explore the topic of what relationship patterns are following you, what behaviors or situations keep coming up and repeating in life? Where does it come from? How to shift out of that? And as always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Sending you warm wishes and soothing hums.